Okay, in this next lesson, we are going to look at side chain compression. Now, we're going to talk about compression in general a lot more in detail in another lesson, but for right now, we're going to use some side chain compression. So to explain this, I'm going to bring a compressor onto my baseline track to begin with. So let me drag that across. So I've just grabbed the compressor from the audio effects folder and dragged it along to my baseline. Now this is a compressor here, so essentially what it does is it listens to a sound and basically when you turn the threshold down, any sound that goes over the peak of this threshold will be reduced by the ratio. So for example, if a sound was louder than where this dot is or this arrow is here, it would be reduced, anything past this arrow would be reduced by a 2-to-1 ratio, which basically just means half the size. If I change that to a 5-to-1 ratio, it means the sound that passes this little arrow here will be 1/5 of the original volume. So what it's used for is actually just make the softest sounds in audio as loud as the loudest sound, so it squashes the track down, flattens it, and makes it sound a lot thicker and more compressed in general. But what we want to do with sidechain compression is actually make our different tracks, so make our bassline, for example, we want that to compress when the kick drum plays. So what that will do is when the kick drum plays, it'll compress our bassline momentarily, allowing the kick drum to punch through the bassline and just really stand out in our piece. So the way we apply sidechain compression is by clicking this arrow to the on the left hand side of the compressor and hitting the sidechain button here. Now when we choose our audio from, we're going to choose it from the kick. Okay, so now that means every time the kick plays, it's going to affect our compressor. So I'm going to bring the threshold down, and I'm just going to turn this track down quieter so I can talk over the top of it. And basically when I play this, sorry, I'll go to a part where the kick is actually playing. So every time that the kick passes or the kick hits, it's going to bring the compressor down on this track and make the track sound like it's sucking in. So I'll bring it down all the way, and I'll let you listen to what's happening to the bass line. So here's the bass line here, and we'll just have a listen to what's happening to the bass line as this compressor plays. I might just turn it back up again. Okay, now let's have a listen to it. So I'll solo this with the kick drum. I'll turn the kick drum off again. So what's happening now? Every time the kick plays, the bass track drops down and lets the kick punch through, and then comes back in afterwards. Now this is controlled by the attack. So what's happening now is when the kick plays, 2 milliseconds later, the compressor kicks in and drops the sound down. We want this to happen as soon as the kick plays. So I'm going to move the attack to 0.01 milliseconds. So it's basically as soon as that kick plays, the track drops down, the compressor sucks it down. The release is basically how long it takes for the compression to stop after the kick stops playing, which is pretty instantaneously. So I'm going to set that to 30 milliseconds because that's about the length of the kick there. So now every time it will play, the kick drum will cause the bass line to suck down and allow the kick drum to shine through. So let's have a listen again, and let's have a listen to it with everything in place. It may not sound like much, but with bass frequencies, so kick drums and bass lines, they compete for the same frequency spectrum. So when both are playing at once, they can get kind of lost within one another. So this allows some separation and allows the kick to really shine through on top of the bass line and kind of lets them coexist with one another and actually play alongside each other, and both can be heard. It also creates this real sucking kind of pumping feeling that you hear throughout electronic dance music. And so it's not always the bass that we do this to. Sometimes we'll do this to our synth tracks. So I'm just going to paste. So I've just copied the compressor. I'm going to paste that onto all of my chord tracks. And so now the same thing is going to happen to the chords. Let's just have a play of it and listen. So now you can hear the kick drum sucking the chords in as well each time. So that'll allow the kick to really pump through. And I guess the kick drum is the most important part of electronic dance music. It's what creates the driving rhythm and the beat that everyone dances to. So we need it to shine through. So sidechain compression allows us to do that. Now, if compressors don't make complete sense just yet, don't get down on yourself, because I haven't really explained them properly yet. They'll be explained more in the mixing section of these tutorials. So for now, just follow through the way we sidechain. So basically, all we have to do is click the arrow up the top of the compressor, turn the sidechain on, set it to kick, and bring the threshold down. Set the attack really quick and the release to about 30 milliseconds, and there you'll have a sidechain compressor that sucks the bass line in and anything else you set it to as the kick plays.